He said, "I fucking can't stand women. I think you should just leave him." When I heard the police banging on my door a few minutes later, I'd be like, fuck the police. When I walked over to get my package, I found that he had already installed one of the devices at the front of his house.
If you don't have that one neighbor in your neighborhood or in your building, you might be that neighbor.
Hi, I'm Ray Arcade, and this is
Your husband.
And we are here for another episode of Stories from Reddit.
Actually...
Click, click, click.
I know you've been rehearsing that.
Okay.
Hit me with your intro.
Click, click, click. Bailiff, are you ready to bring in another round of stories to be judged?
Ready?
Okay, so as always, we're going into these blind. Neither of us has read them. And 3 of them are going to be from the subreddit Am I the Asshole? And 3 of them are going to be from the subreddit r/advice. So let's get into it. This one is from r/advice. Neighbor stole package and is now upset I'm forcing him to replace the items. I recently ordered a couple of new Ring devices for my home, but they were delivered to my neighbor's house by mistake. When I walked over to get my package, I found that he had already installed one of the devices at the front of his house. I knocked on his door and explained that my package had been delivered to him by mistake, and I was there to pick it up. He claimed he didn't have any packages for me. I then showed him the delivery confirmation picture from the app, which clearly showed the packages on his doorstep with his address visible. He told me to give him a moment. The man then uninstalled the Ring camera from his home and tried to give it to me. I explained that the device was useless to me since it was already set up on his account and connected to his Wi-Fi. More importantly, I told him I wasn't comfortable with him potentially having access to my home and my family's security. I told him he needed to replace the devices or I would involve the police. He grumbled and left. Eventually, he returned with a new device, but complained that he shouldn't have to replace it because it was Amazon's fault. I told him it wasn't. It was his fault for being a thief and a shitty person to boot. This isn't the first time I've had issues with him. He has a history of drinking, being loud, and acting aggressively. I'm at my wit's end and don't want the situation to escalate. So I'm asking for any advice on how I can make this relationship better. I feel like I've tried everything, and my only option left is to call the police every time he acts this way. Well, I'd say, first of all, calling the police every time your neighbor is an asshole is a swift pipeline to never, ever being taken seriously, and then you become the nuisance to the police. So if you then do something wrong and the neighbor calls the police on you, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, this fucking asshole.
Yeah, that's step 1 on how to escalate the tension.
Also, the police aren't going to do anything. They're not. So, I mean, it's shitty. Your neighbor stole your Ring camera, but the police won't do anything. I mean, you could try to take him to civil court and then not get the money anyway.
File a police report, take him to small claims because it's a civil matter. Like, yeah, the neighbor's obviously an asshole, but this is, I think, if the neighbor is an asshole and is the problem, why are you trying to make the relationship better? Do everything in your power to just not interact with them. You might have to, like, ignore them to a great extent, but obviously they're not neighborly. They don't want to be neighbors.
I feel like, Stella, I feel like the best approach, I feel like no matter where you are, if you live in a neighborhood or close to people, you're always going to have that one person in the neighborhood. You're always going to have that one person that you just have to ignore. When you start getting involved with that person in the neighborhood, it almost becomes a blood feud, like the Montagues and the Capulets.
Or the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yeah.
Something a little more appropriate. If you don't have that one neighbor in your neighborhood or in your building, you might be that neighbor. So maybe take a moment to self-reflect.
Yeah. I think the best approach is just ignore and document, but don't be calling the police. Also, nobody likes somebody who's always calling the police. I'm sorry. Nobody likes that person.
This just reminds me of that, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And it may not be, if someone, is stealing your stuff or someone is harassing you, calling the police isn't the wrong thing. But if someone is being dickish about, oh, I don't want to pay for your property that I took. Like, don't call the police.
Honestly, just be like, yo, what up, Amazon? And they'll give you a return or your money. Dude, you can get so much money back from Amazon.
How much does a Ring camera even cost?
I don't know, like 100, maybe 200. The irony here being that if they had a Ring camera.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's my advice. Is ignore the best you can and don't call the cops.
Don't call the cops on every neighbor disagreement or dispute.
Okay.
So it's just a waste of public safety resources.
Yeah.
They got better things to do.
They do. All right. Moving on. This is one from Am I the Asshole? For telling my mom it wasn't cute or funny to dress me as a hot dog instead of a princess. A new Target commercial has been airing where a little girl dresses as a hot dog, and it came on while my family was watching a movie. I, 20 female, am home from college for the weekend and brought my boyfriend with me. My mother, 57 female, decided it would be hilarious to mention that she had made me a hot dog costume when I was a kid. However, the way she told the story, she claimed it was my idea. She said that while the other girls wanted to be Disney princesses, I had specifically asked to be a hot dog. So she went out of her way to make me that costume. This is not what happened, and I told her so. What had actually happened is that I wanted to be Snow White and had... What had actually happened is that I wanted to be Snow White and had told everyone, including my teachers, that I was going to be her for Halloween. I was obsessed with that movie as a kid, to the point where I would get excited about doing chores because I was cleaning up, just like Snow White. My dad and I watched the movie all the time, and I was thrilled to be Snow White for Halloween. This was especially true because my ballet studio was doing a special princess dance for Halloween. We had all signed up for princess slots and had even shown up early with my dad the week before to make sure I could be Snow White. My mother decided she wanted to be quirky and that Snow White was a bad role model after I got in trouble trying to cook dinner for my family. I was about 8 years old and tried to make hot dogs, like how Snow White made food for the dwarves, but I made a mess. On the day of Halloween, my mom surprised me with a shitty hot dog suit and told me that if I didn't wear it, she'd never let me watch Snow White again. She took a million pictures, the other girls teased me for months, and it was one of my most humiliating moments of my childhood. I told the real story. I explained that I got through the day by pretending she was an evil queen, forcing me to dress in rags. Only in my case, the rags were a garbage meat costume. She got really quiet after that. After we left, my brother told me she was crying while looking at the pictures from that Halloween. I didn't want to make my mom cry, but it's a horrible memory for me, and I felt like she was trying to humiliate me all over again in front of my boyfriend. Too long, didn't read. My mom pretended I wanted to be a hot dog for Halloween, twisting and humiliating a childhood memory into a cute story. I called her out for forcing me to wear a costume, and now she's upset. Am I the asshole?
I don't know. I'm in an off mood today. Are these reliable narrators?
Well, here's the thing. I feel like whenever somebody goes to the Am I the Asshole subreddit, they very clearly want to not be the asshole. Right. Like, you have your own personal biases. I don't think it specifically says how old she was, but I assume she's young. And maybe there was like a point where the mother had made a joke about hot dogs, or we should make you a hot dog for Halloween. And maybe the daughter was like, yeah, okay, despite always wanting to be Snow White. For some reason, the mother attached herself to that specific thing and thought it would be funny or cute or something, and didn't necessarily mean harm by it.
The girl said she got in trouble for trying to be Snow White and making hot dogs for her family for dinner.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's an interesting tidbit to include. Did this girl not want to acknowledge that she had a weird hot dog phase?
Yeah, maybe she had a hot dog phase.
Kids are weird. Kids can go through a 6-month period where they're like, I love hamburgers. I want a hamburger birthday. And you're like, what the fuck is it about a hamburger? Okay, kid, whatever. You like hamburgers. That's your personality trait. That's your personality trait.
If she's telling it like it is and her mom just like totally ignored her and her want to be Snow White, then obviously the mom's an asshole. And I think you shouldn't force your kids into doing something just because you don't like.
Now, what if this was OP's idea as a kid and the mom supported the idea because she wanted to be a good mom? And then the OP got made fun of for wearing a homemade hot dog costume. And then it turned into one of these, why did you let me do that? Why wouldn't you stop me?
The whole story just seems so stupid. You know what I mean? Like something to be, I mean, like I said, if the daughter really wanted to be Snow White and the mom totally ignored it and disregarded her, I think that's really weird, a really weird choice to make as a parent. And I don't think you should do that. Obviously, being Snow White is harmless. Also, if your kid is 8, she's 8, so she's young. If your kid is 8 and trying to make dinner for everybody, I think you should, instead of getting upset with them, be like, oh, this is great. Let me teach you how to cook. Do you know what I mean?
Unless she was trying to like cook them over the open flame of the gas stove.
Maybe.
We don't know.
But, if the mom overruled her daughter to turn her into a hot dog, I think the mom's an asshole. But we are relying on somebody who is remembering their childhood at 8, which is not necessarily reliable. And I will say, if the mom was crying, she obviously was looking back on it in her mind through happy memories, and maybe the mom was crying because she felt bad. She didn't realize how traumatizing it was for her daughter, and now she's looking back on a happy memory thinking, oh, my daughter was tormented over something I thought was silly and cute,
I wonder if this was the most traumatic thing in OP's childhood.
Yeah. Well, I would say if it is what it is, then I would say the mom's an asshole.
For the purposes of this, OP, not the asshole.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly.
Not the asshole. All right, here's another one from Am I the Asshole for drawing an ugly portrait of someone who passed away. For context, this happened a few years ago during my second to last year of high school. I recently shared this story with friends at university, and they argued over whether I was in the wrong, which is why I'm posting this. During my junior year of high school, a girl in our grade passed away. She was terminally ill, and a school held a short assembly and set up a memorial for her. I admit I was not that close with her. We were acquainted and spoke occasionally, but we weren't close friends, so to speak. The next day, I brought a portrait of her that I had drawn to school. I noticed that in the area set aside for her memorial, there were some framed photographs of her and portraits drawn by friends. To be clear, I hadn't originally planned on sharing my portrait. I wanted to see if others were sharing portraits first, and I didn't want to overstep. For context, I am a good artist, and I had a reputation as the class artist. When I placed my portrait next to the others, one of her friends came up to me and said my drawing wasn't welcome. I was confused because I saw other portraits, but then I realized they had all been drawn by her close circle of friends. She also told me my drawing was so ugly, it must have been done on purpose to mock the girl who passed away. After that, multiple people mocked my drawing. What I don't understand is that even if my drawing was ugly, that was obviously never my intention. I made the drawing to honor her memory, and that friend had no right to disrespect me so openly. Even as a close friend of hers, she didn't have the right to decide whose artwork could or could not be placed on the memorial. Am I the asshole for refusing to take down my artwork? There's a couple edits. Edit 1. This was years ago. I do not have the drawing or images of it. I remember it was a pencil drawing done on a sheet of paper. All the other drawings at the memorial were also pencil drawings. Edit 2. Thank you for all the comments. I just wanted to clarify a few things for those of you who've been asking. Yes, I was grieving. You don't have to be close friends with someone to feel the emotional impact on their death. Second, I only mentioned I was a class artist to support the idea that I'm not a bad artist and to suggest I was singled out for not being one of their friend group. My motivation for making the drawing was the same as everyone else's. Third, this was an open memorial where people brought all kinds of things. Chocolates, pencils, they may have borrowed from her, and other random items. The only people who brought drawn portraits were her close friends and I. So, are they the asshole for not taking their artwork down?
This might be the hardest one.
You know what I've noticed when somebody dies, like young or tragically or something, everybody suddenly knows this person, right? And they want to get in on almost it's like a spectacle. It becomes a spectacle. And I'm not saying this person didn't have good intentions, but, I could see if you're a really close friend with somebody, they pass away, and then suddenly all these people who you feel like didn't know them might be trying to vie for personal attention when it's not about them, it's about the person who passed away. I'm not necessarily saying that's the intention of the OP, but I could see being in a vulnerable place and feeling like that.
Did it say why the subject of the ugly portrait died?
Terminally ill.
Terminally ill. I wonder if the OP kind of drew them in their very late stages of their life when they were really terminally ill and probably didn't look happiest or healthiest. And I could go two ways with that. If they were close with the late friend, and the late friend was like, I want people to remember, all stages of me, including my end, so they could recognize and remember my fight against this terminal illness, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But if they didn't have that connection with the friend that passed away, the schoolmate that passed away, and they just took it upon themselves to include that, it's a little self-inviting.
Maybe it wasn't even ugly. Maybe it was a good picture, but maybe her close friends were like, you don't know her. And they were like, well, let's just tell her it's ugly. So she feels bad about it. So she takes it down.
Maybe. But the OP did themselves no favor by editing and saying, I called myself in the post the class artist to support the idea that I'm not a bad artist.
I think
super subjective there.
I think on these posts, the more edits you have to make, the more of an asshole you seem. I will say this. This is in high school. And I will say I have a hard time faulting high schoolers during a heightened emotional event for being assholes, because I feel like you're not totally developed. Some girl just died. I'm sure a lot of people were feeling a lot of when you're young and you're, in high school, you're 16, 17, and suddenly you're faced with the idea of mortality, and it's a lot going on.
No, I disagree. You can be 16 years old, 17 years old and be an asshole.
No, I know. I'm just saying this. I feel like she might have had.
Don't patronize them.
I'm not.
They might have been an asshole for drawing a picture that wasn't asked of them to draw, or maybe it wasn't a good picture.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying I judge a little less harshly.
No, I judge more harshly.
We all do things in high school where you look back and you're like, ugh, cringe. Okay.
Thank you, Gen Z.
So, what do you think?
Does it have to be a binary choice? Is it the asshole or not the asshole?
This is our show. We can do whatever we want.
Kind of the asshole.
Kind of the asshole?
Kind of the asshole, maybe.
Okay. Kind of the asshole. Am I the asshole for not answering the door when my ex's mom showed up at my apartment unannounced? This story happened a couple years ago, but I was talking about crazy mother-in-law stories recently with a friend, and she thinks I was the asshole in this scenario. I have sole custody of my children. My ex and his family live about a 9-hour drive from me. One day, around 9 a.m., there was a knock on my bedroom window. I peeked through the bottom of my blinds and saw a woman's sneakers. So I peeked higher and made eye contact with my ex's mom. All I could think was, what the heck? The apartment complex where I live isn't gated, so anyone can drive into the property, but they can't get into my buildings without a key. This means my ex's mom couldn't knock on my front door because she couldn't enter my building. Anyway, now that she had seen me, I changed and went to see why she was there. The only reason she has my address is that a few months back, she asked to mail some packages for the kids, and I foolishly gave it to her. She told me she was in the neighborhood. I asked her why she didn't call me before arriving, and she said it was a last-minute decision. I let her in, and she visited with the kids for a bit. When she left, I told her next time she needed to give me a heads up before arriving. I clarified that I didn't mean 10 minutes before. I needed at least a 1-week notice. So this is where I might have been the asshole. About 4 months later, she pulled this stunt again. When I heard the tapping on my window, I knew exactly who it was. I didn't bother looking. She started calling me, and after the 5th call, I answered. She told me to open up because she wanted to see the kids. I was confused. I told her I wasn't even home and asked why she hadn't told me she was coming. I explained that I was 45 minutes away visiting my dad with the kids. She demanded my dad's address, but I refused to give it to her. I told her I had no idea when I would be home. Yes, that was a lie. She didn't believe me and thought I was home, again saying it was a last-minute decision. I hung up on her and then started getting texts from my ex demanding I let his mom see the kids. I told him the same thing I told her. I wasn't home. Imagine my surprise when I heard the police banging on my door a few minutes later. I didn't answer. Then I got a call from an unknown number. It was the police officer. He said he was there to perform a wellness check because my ex's mom claimed she hadn't heard from me in 3 days and was extremely worried. He also told me that it was illegal not to answer the door when a police officer knocks. I told him she was lying, as I had just spoken to her on the phone after she showed up unannounced. I explained that I had already made it clear she couldn't do that, and that I was out with my family, and that I didn't have to return just because she decided to show up. I stated she was my ex's mom, and I'm not obligated to speak with her. After that phone call, I got a text from my ex calling me an asshole and asking how hard it would have been just to let his mom see the kids when she drove all the way just to see them. I want to make it clear, I don't mind her visiting. I don't mind her being around my kids. However, I can't stand her showing up unannounced and demanding she's to see my kids like that. It feels like she was on a weird power trip. Thoughts?
Not the asshole. Knee jerk, not the asshole, no. She admitted that she drove all that way the second time, which means she drove all that way the first time and she wasn't in the neighborhood.
I'm confused. It says is 9 hours away.
Why isn't the ex's mom visiting the kids when they're with the ex?
Well, the OP says she has sole custody.
There's no visitation?
It appears not.
Sounds like there's some lack of accountability on the ex's part. What kind of asshole do you got to be to not at least get visitation or partial custody of your kids?
Yeah, I can see it being like, well, obviously there's a lot going on and it's kind of complicated. I think that OP is not the asshole. I can see it being kind of tough to be living far away from your grandkids and your son doesn't have any custody of them and wanting to see them. I'm sure that would be pretty hard, but I think that there's a million other ways you can go about maturely, respectfully communicating with somebody to see your grandkids.
Yeah, communicating a need and then responding to that expressed boundary when it is expressed and respecting that boundary. I also, big red flag, like this feels like it's got to be somewhere kind of small townish, because she said the second time she got a call from a police officer and the police officer was like, we're trying to do a wellness check after 3 days. It's illegal to not answer the door.
I'd be like, fuck the police.
It is not illegal to answer the door.
Yeah, don't answer the door.
Unless they got a warrant.
No, I mean, like, okay, police officer, shut up. Like, don't be threatening normal people. It's illegal. Get out of here.
Even CPS, I don't think in most states, even CPS can't enter a home without a warrant.
Yeah.
So.
And don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's lots of cops out there who are, doing a good job or trying to do their best.
Let's not get sidetracked here. Let's keep it to the
But I'm just saying, don't be like, you need to open the door. It's illegal. It's not. Know your rights. Become a sovereign citizen, actually, and be like, I'm not in a moving vehicle. What do they say when they get pulled over?
I'm here on behalf of the all caps name individual.
It was like, I wasn't.
In trust and in perpetuity.
I wasn't driving. I was traveling. I was
not conducting interstate commerce. I've watched so many of those videos on YouTube.
Fuck, sovereign citizens are so fucking stupid. Anyway, back on track. So, no, not the asshole.
Not the asshole.
Okay, you ready? Not the asshole. Yay. This is from r/advice. Friends with benefits, or am I just a free prostitute? Let me stop you right there. There's no such thing as a free prostitute. That's like calling yourself a jumbo shrimp. I've known this guy for 6 months now. He's 31 and I'm 24. At first, everything was wonderful. We had a great connection. He made an effort to meet up and he actively pursued me. We messaged almost every day, sharing a lot of personal things with each other and laughing constantly. He even told me that he liked me and said I wasn't complicated like other women. Uh-oh. I liked him too. Now I regret having ever gotten involved with him. I was always there for him. For example, when his cat died recently, I comforted him and suggested we see each other so we could talk about it, with no expectation of sex. Later, however, his behavior completely changed, and he has become much more selfish. His routine is now to pick me up in the evenings, go to his house, and have sex. I've suggested several times that we could order food, and while he always agrees, he never follows through. He just picks me up, we have quick sex, and then he drives me home. Because I've been feeling down, I haven't messaged him in the last 4 days. He eventually asked what was wrong, so I told him what was going on in my life. His only response was to remind me that we aren't married. What does that even mean? Does he not see me as a human being with feelings? Am I just a sex doll to him? I cried today. Should I block him? Men have this tendency, from my personal experience, to be really interested in a woman right off the bat. You know, it's like rose-colored glasses, and it's almost like they love bomb you, maybe unintentionally or whatever, and then they get weird. They get real weird about 3 to 5 weeks in, and then they stop talking to you. And the best thing to do, if you really like them, the best thing to do is to go no contact. Don't reach out to them, ignore them, try to block their social media, leave their number unblocked. If they really like you, they will reach back out to you. Now, if you have to do that, inherently, you shouldn't be. But if you're young and dumb and want to fuck around, go no contact until he reaches back out. But I don't suggest doing that. What I suggest doing with men like this is to fucking move on. There's so many men out there who you could just spend your time with, who want to treat you right, who would treat you right. Yes, he's using you for sex. Yes, he's not interested in you. If he was, you would know. Women, if you are with a man and you were questioning, does this guy even like me? He doesn't like you. Stop wasting your time. And I know it's like you might have insecurities and you're like, if this guy who I like so much would just like me back, I'd feel a lot better about myself. Don't do that.
I agree.
Okay, moving on. All right. This one is also from r/advice. Overheard fiance talking shit about me and women in general. Uh-oh. I recently got engaged to my fiance, who is extremely affectionate, loving, and sweet to me daily. We have been together for 5 years and are both 30 years old. However, today we argued after I became upset about gaining a little weight. I always thought he kept our disagreements and my insecurities private. He even assured me that he did. I know I keep everything he confides in me private, but today I overheard him talking about me while he was gaming. He had thought I had went to volleyball. He was saying how much he hates women and that we're all the same. He said, I fucking can't stand women, and that I drive him crazy. He ranted that women are all psychos, and it would be easier if he and his friends could just be gay together. What? He followed it with, if your woman doesn't drive you crazy, then she's a dude, and he loves me, but I drive him crazy. I was actually absolutely shocked because I've never heard him talk this way about women or me. He then said after our third date, he had sealed the deal. He proceeded to ask his friends all about his sex life and talked about how crazy other girls in the past were. He called other women fucking bitches and fat, and said that some are only good for one thing before you drop them. He honestly sounded like a stranger. I have never heard him say things like this. I understand ranting and blowing off steam, but this made me feel like I don't even know him. It is deeply unsettling to think I'm with someone who sounds so misogynistic. Am I being overly sensitive? Girl, no. Thoughts?
No. I mean, it's one thing to maybe, it's natural and inevitable to maybe vent about a partner, especially if it's a long-term relationship. There's a difference between venting and ranting.
Yeah.
Ranting is unproductive. It's not constructive. And that sounds like the fiance is ranting, in which case, you're a piece of shit, dude.
And maybe I'm wrong here. I mean, I game, but it's like a lot of mixed genders. So I've never been in like a straight up bro situation. So I don't know what that's like, but I get the feeling there are some groups of men who play video games where they'll like shit on one of their friend's significant other, and it becomes like a toxic thing. Like he might be like, yeah, my girl's being annoying, and they'll be like, yeah, fuck that bitch, and then it just becomes like a shit talking thing. I feel like that's kind of something that happens a lot in social groups, and that guy might not even mean it completely, but maybe he's doing it because he feels egged on by his friends too.
I mean, men can be miserable, you're right. And especially if men don't realize or don't want to accept that they're the reason they're miserable or that they're the reason they're lonely, they can, absolutely turn a conversation into a downward spiral of just being awful and disgusting. And maybe the fiance, not excusing the fiance, if the fiance thought, oh, to maintain my friend group and my status in the friend group, I need to participate in the shitting on and the talking shit about women in general, then he's a pretty weak dude.
Yeah. Also, maybe gay. I mean, might be gay.
Might be gay.
I kind of laughed about it at first, but like, if you hate women that much and you're making jokes about how everybody should all be gay together, maybe he's like putting out feelers. Maybe one of them would be like, yeah, haha, and he'd be like, ha ha ha.
Probably go check that dude's phone for Grindr.
For Grindr.
For Grindr.
Yeah, and I will say, it's totally fine to vent about your partner sometimes, but I feel like you need to be balanced about it, where you don't go overboard and it's not constant, because we annoy each other sometimes, and I might have a close friend where I'm like, oh my God, husband is just so fucking stupid today. Not like all the time. I'm like, oh, he did this really fucking annoying thing. I love him so much. Shannon, that's not true. Stop, because they're going to be like, look at this bitch. No, but like, I do things that annoy you. We get on each other's nerves sometimes, and you go to your friend, yeah, they did this thing that was super annoying, and it helps you just move on with your day. When you start complaining about your significant other to everybody close to you all the time, then everybody you know is going to have an inherent dislike against your partner, who might not even be that bad. It's just you're really negative and complaining about them. I feel like if you want to maintain a healthy relationship with your partner and all the people you're close to, you can't talk shit about them all the time.
If all you're ever doing is venting and talking shit about your partner, then you're unhappy at your core, and you're staying in that relationship because you'd rather be miserable with company than alone.
Yeah. My advice to this girl would be
Confront him.
Yeah.
Absolutely confront him, call him out, hold him accountable. I heard you say this. I heard you firsthand say this. If you really feel that way about me, why wouldn't you say so to me? That was deeply hurtful. Get fucked.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand not wanting to throw away a relationship, especially if they just got engaged, but I would be like, we need to talk about this, and you either need to apologize, change the way you think, show me some respect. But honestly, I feel like once you feel like the respect for you is gone, there's really no getting it back. So
I don't understand. This is genuine. I don't understand why some men legitimately hate women.
I don't get it either.
Understand it. I don't understand it.
There's men out there. It's jokes, it's memes online, but there's just some men out there that really hate their wives.
They hate their wives. They hate women in general. I don't get it. Maybe this guy is one of those, and he just did a really good job of hiding it from his fiance. I don't get it. If you hate women that much, go be gay. It's 2025. If there's people in your life in 2025 that are going to judge you for wanting to be with men because you don't like women, then move out of your small fucking town.
Or just be single.
Yeah.
Like, don't ruin this poor girl's life, you know?
Back to the advice. Confront him, hold him accountable, demand change, demand apologies.
I think you should just leave him.
Fuck it, leave him.
Leave him.
Date yourself, love yourself.
Hell yeah. Well, bailiff, I think justice was served today. So why don't you round up these stories and throw them in the clink?
There was a blending of bits there. Are you an old timey frontier judge?
Lock
now?
them up.
You're an old timey frontier judge.
Well, partner, welcome to my town. No law breaking here.
You're the law in this here shit stain on the
Let's start over again. This ending is not wrapping up very well. Starting over again. Well, bailiff, I think justice was served. So why don't you round up this group of sad stories, throw them in jail.
Dung dung.
Okay. Until next time, this has been Stories from Reddit. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.